What are your thoughts on the recent controversies involving historical figures who were also involved in multiple circumstances of wrongdoing? Do you believe that these statues of people like Thomas Jefferson or Confederate generals should be taken down?
It's unfortunate that we even have to have this debate because someone who has, yes, accomplished many things, but has done so many horrible things to people, like, be involved in killing people, raping people, and having, belittling comments, or just the fact that they are there to be celebrated, but yet they've done so many horrible things, should not be in a place of reconciliation or celebration. Excuse me, they should not be in a place of celebration. So unfortunately, I think they should be taken out of public places and put in places that are more educational, like museums, libraries, where people can learn more about the full person, who they are, what they have done in our, country, and how they are related to the history of our country, because we need to understand the full complexities of these people and not just celebrate them because they did one or two things great.
Do you support the recent protests where people are taking down these statues? Do you believe that they're going about it in the right way?
Well, I don't ever condone people breaking the law or breaking the rules, because then they can only have retaliation against them. But I understand and empathize with them because they have been trying to be silent and protest. They can't take the knee silently. So they're at a point where it's almost bubbled over to the fact that they're like, I just need to be heard. You're not hearing me. And so this is the result of that. Hopefully we'll get to a place where they will agree to just have certain laws and things put in place so we don't have to even go through this.
For people who think that taking down statues is erasing history, how should history be taught besides through statues?
Well, that's the problem. History has not been taught accurately. They've been painting a one-sided picture of what history is, and they need to show the full story of what history was. Tell the truth. How about that? Just tell the truth and stop trying to, no, we're not trying to erase history. We're just trying to tell the entire story about our history, and not just from the victor's perspective or his story. We need to tell the entire story, and that's not been done. That's why so many history books are wrong. No, Jefferson wasn't just a great man. He didn't build this country and his plantation all by himself. He had over 600 slaves to help him do it. And no, Christopher Columbus did not discover this new world. It was already discovered by the people who were living here. So it's like, let's get things right. Let's correct some of the information that's out there and tell the truth. That's where we need to start.
What are the alternative ways we can teach our history in an accurate format?
I think teaching it in tangible ways where kids especially can gravitate to it, listen to it, and like make it interactive instead of just talking at them. Making it interactive was always something that worked for me. And even when I was, going through the process to write my book, Jefferson's Children, with Jane Feldman, we went to different places like a slave cemetery and did like slave tombstone rubbings where you can touch it, you can see it, you can take pictures, you can experience it firsthand. Those are what made history exciting for me. Going to a courthouse and looking through documents and old records and film to try to find information about your family. It was almost like I was a detective or something. So that was a lot of fun to be able to take part in that and make it, just more real.
You wrote a book about Jefferson's Children. So can you go a little bit into detail about what you wrote about and why you wrote that book?
Well, the book Jefferson's Children, The Story of One American Family, is the book I co-authored with Jane Feldman. She's a photojournalist out of New York. And when we were at the first reunion of Thomas Jefferson's family, both through his wife Martha and through his slave Sally Hemings, I met Jane at that reunion and had an opportunity to bring the family together for a family photo on the steps of Monticello. And Jane's like, I think we're always going to know each other. And I was like, yeah, okay. And then she went back to New York and told one of her friends and someone she had published books for before at Random House what she just experienced. And Random House said, we want a book. We want it now. This is amazing. So Jane and I set out on a journey to travel across the country, meeting 4 generations of Jefferson descendants, both that look white to the eye, some that look black to the eye, and some that were all in between, because it's not really a black and white family. It's more of a rainbow family. Like any black family reunion you go to, you're going to see all shades of colors there. So it was amazing to really have this opportunity to have in-depth and intimate interviews with all these family members and see a little bit how they were all different, but yet how they were so similar in sharing this one history, this one past.
I know it was probably crazy being a child and telling your friends that you're related to Thomas Jefferson. How did that go over with them? Were they shocked? Were they like, he's crazy? What was their reaction?
Well, one of the things we write about in the book that people always love this story is when I stand up in second grade and I tell my class that Thomas Jefferson is my great, 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 great grandfather. And the teacher's like, sit down and stop telling lies. The whole class laughed at me, unfortunately. But my mother did come to school and she corrected the teacher and said, do not tell him he is lying. And he is a descendant of Thomas Jefferson and Sally Hemings. And that's one of the things my mother taught my brother Sean and I is to be strong in the belief of who we are, to stay true to that, and don't let other people define us for us. And so, we didn't say it as much after that experience, but we always knew it and we always believed it.
Why is it important for people of your stature to be speaking out about these important issues that are plaguing our country right now?
Because I think we have to know our past. We have to know our history. And a lot of times people say you don't want to repeat it, so you have to know it. And I think it's important to tell the story because we shouldn't just give people passes like Jefferson. He shouldn't just get a pass because he was president. He was also a slave owner, and he owned a lot of people. And we need to start holding people accountable for their actions. We've seen that recently in the headlines. It's time that we hold a mirror to America to show them this is the result of slavery, that a white president can have a descendant 9 generations later that is a black male living in this society with all of its inequalities. We come from a complicated history in this country, but we're not going to get past that history unless we start talking about it, unless we start telling the truth and acknowledge what happened. This country many times doesn't even like to acknowledge that slavery existed. Well, it did exist. I'm a product of a relationship that a slave master had with one of his slaves, and we have to talk about it. We can never come to a place of healing and reconciliation unless we start the discussion.
Why do you think people are upset about African Americans and other people still talking about slavery? What do they not understand about that?
We were in slavery longer than we've been out of slavery. People alive today knew someone who knew a slave or a freed slave at that time. So we're not that far away that people may think it's, ancient history. We're not talking about, BC dates. We're talking about, recent times. And so I think people don't want to get over it because for many years they haven't been able to even acknowledge that it happened, to even get an apology for it happening. So I think, again, we have to get to a point where we acknowledge that it did happen in order for us to get past it. Many other ethnicities and, people are allowed to talk about the tragedies that happened in their lives and their families and their, culture, like the Holocaust and certain things and things that happened to other people. But so many times people don't want Black people to talk about slavery, and they just forget about it, stop talking about it. It's no, we need to talk about it. So for a lot of people it's healing to talk about it. For a lot of people it's therapeutic to be able to express themselves and be able to acknowledge. If we don't talk about it, then that's not validating the lives of all the people who gave their blood, sweat, and tears for this country, for the foundation of this country. This country would not be what it is today without the slaves who made it possible, without all the slaves that Jefferson had, so he could have time to write the Declaration of Independence and sign the Louisiana Purchase. So many things would not have been even possible without slaves. So we need to recognize them and give them a voice, because so many of them were not able to speak when they were alive.
How should students be taught about slavery in schools? Because a lot of it is whitewashed. A lot of it is inaccurate. How should people be taught about slavery?
Well, just do what you just said. Stop whitewashing it. Stop sanitizing it. Stop trying to tell only partial truths so that people aren't seen as bad people and they just want people to be seen as the victors and the heroes of the story. No, tell the truth. Tell people what it was. Now, of course, for younger children, you may have to, leave out some of the more graphic details and just say, oh, they hurt them, really badly, or something like that, to try to, temper it a little bit. But you have to tell the truth. My children are 9, 7, and 4, and I talk to them about slavery. I talk to them about the inequalities in this world and why people are, hateful. We were just watching that old school film called La Bamba I don't even know if that's the name of it. Like, so Selena, for example, we have Spanish days in our house. So we were learning about Selena and her culture. And we were learning about why people were discriminated against her father and different things like that. And talking about how people should not be judged by just the way they look, but, you know, the content of their own character and the ethics and the morals that they live by. And they get it. They understand. It's not that hard of a concept. So it's important that we do teach our kids these things so they don't start to do it, so they don't perpetuate these lies and these mistruths, this discrimination that may have been passed down from their parents, even in some households. Just because your parents believe a certain thing doesn't mean that you're regulated to believe those same things.
You being a journalist, you have access to a certain part of our country and you have a platform. What is the thing about using your platform that will help people?
Well, one of the things I try to do in my life, in my platform, and everything that I touch is try to find the cup half full. You know, a lot of people say, is your cup or is your glass half full or half empty? And most of the time, I'm just grateful to have a glass at all. So I try to bring that forth in the things that I do with positive messages. Even when, you know, talking about some of these hard topics with Jefferson and slavery, I try to have a positive spin. And when talking to my kids about it, I say, well, we didn't start at slavery. You know, we go back to kings and queens in Africa. And even if you do focus on the slavery aspect, we come from the greatest, the strongest, the people that survived. You know, a lot of people want to look at the negative aspects of a slave, but these slaves were stronger than I gather most of us are today. I don't think I could survive slavery, not in the mindset that I'm in today. So I try to look at those positive aspects and say, look at the strong, amazing people that we come from, that they could survive the unthinkable and still live to tell about it, still have descendants that are, you know, proud of their ancestors. So yes, I am proud of my ancestors who were slaves, and I'm proud of my ancestors that were brought over here from Africa. I'm proud of a lot of my family and what they have been able to accomplish, and to the testament that I am here today to tell my story.
And how can America begin the healing process? I know you commented a little bit about the healing process, but how should we begin to heal? And what can we do to make sure that the people that are still feeling the effects of slavery get what they need to live a successful American dream type of life?
I think one of the things that people in America need to start doing is just having some compassion. You know, try to think about life through someone else's shoes. Don't always think you know the answer. Talk to someone who's different from you. Have a conversation with them. How did you grow up? And do it from a place of just sincerity. Not that, you know, oh, let me hear their story, but that you actually care to learn something about someone else. I think one of the reasons a lot of the discriminations and sexism and everything exists that's negative right now is because people are not educated about other people, about other cultures, about other lifestyles. And so they don't understand it. And that's where some of that ignorance comes from, because they don't understand it, or they assume. And you know what happens when you assume. So that's what I try to say. People should open up dialogue with people that are different from them and try to embrace those differences and try to see something from someone else's standpoint. And then, you know, again, educating ourselves. You can start by basically educating yourself by looking up stuff and Googling stuff, and then not perpetuating the hate that exists in the world today. If someone is making a racist joke, try to stop it. Say, no, that's not cool. That's not funny. I don't appreciate that. It's not making me comfortable, and that's disrespectful. And if you start calling people out, then they'll stop doing it. But if you just quietly sit there and laugh and think it's okay, then you're part of the problem. And that's what a lot of people have been silently doing for years, silently being part of the problem. So stop being part of the problem, speak up, and you can do it from a respectful place. You don't have to be nasty about it, but speak up, because it's going to be up to all of us to make a difference. It's going to be up to all of us, not just people in the Black community, to change this world and to change our mindsets and our outlooks in this country to where we can truly become a place that Jefferson said that where all men are created equal, but he didn't practice the time he said it.
And you mentioned the compassion that many Americans lack. And do you believe that President Trump is perpetuating these racist ideologies that will encourage racism amongst regular everyday people?
Unfortunately, I believe that he has been spouting some rhetoric that's divisive, that does not bring people together. And we really need somebody who's going to bring this country together right now. People are hurting, people are in pain, and we really need someone who can unify us and bring us together. And I hope that maybe he moves to a place of compassion and he just changes his life. Hey, everyone is open to change. But what we can't do is continuing to beat people down and make it seem like certain things are okay. Like these Confederate symbols and flags, they are not okay. They are symbols of hate and discrimination and destruction. And they certainly shouldn't be at our military bases. These are people who tried to tear our country apart, not put it together and build it up. So why are we celebrating that? And I understand that people want to keep things as they are, and well, they don't mean that for everyone, but if they are hurting people, then it should be taken down. Symbols and these statues that are hurting people and that are, hurtful to people, that they shouldn't exist, because everyone should be able to feel welcomed and equal and free, especially when they're paying taxes to be here. They shouldn't have to feel belittled or, put in their place, because a lot of these statues clearly were put up originally to put people silently in their place as reminders of who they are in this society. And that's what has to stop, because we live in a society where we are all free and should be considered as such.
Some people view the Confederate flag as heritage, not hate. Is it really just heritage, or is it more sinister, in your opinion?
I think it's more sinister to a lot of people to see it as that. And you can have that heritage in your heart. You can still believe those things in your heart without flaunting it around. And if you really believe that heritage, just because it's part of your heritage, it doesn't mean all of that is positive. Even if an inkling of that is negative, you shouldn't want to be associated with it. Yes, it's part of your heritage, but your heritage also has blood on its hands. And you shouldn't want to be associated with something that has such negative connotations associated with it. So I just try to explain to people, how it makes certain people feel and how belittling it can be for some people, and how it can bring up pain and anger of the past to an entire group of people. And that maybe if they see that and see that, their quote unquote heritage is also, scorned with the blood of so many people, that maybe they will understand a little bit better. And I even give the analogy sometimes of, imagine your most loved person in your life, or even yourself, was raped, killed, hurt by someone, and then they wanted to put up this big statue or flag of the person who did it, and you had to drive past it every day or live with it in your front yard. How would that make you feel? You wouldn't want that. And so that's how a lot of these people feel about these statues, about these flags when they're put up, and it just makes people automatically get, tense and defensive and is scared in many cases for their lives, because of so many negative things that have been associated with those flags and statues. So sometimes you just have to see it from a different perspective.
Shannon, this conversation will have to go even beyond this interview. So thank you for offering your perspective.
Well, thank you for the time to speak about it, and keep up the amazing work you're doing.
Thank you.